Hello. I hope everyone is well. Tonight, we have a very interesting discussion for you. But before we go there, let me introduce myself. I'm Avril from BDA Scotland. So tonight's discussion is going to address the topic of retirement, and we have two very special guests joining us here tonight to talk about their experiences of retirement. Um, So I'm keen to ask them about their experiences, about their journeys, and whether they have any tips and advice for those of us um, at home who might be watching and thinking about the future. So I'm keen to hear their stories, and I'm sure some of you are looking at retirement perhaps this year, or perhaps you've just retired recently and are unsure what to do with yourself. So, our two experts should be able to dispense their advice and their experiences and give you some food for thought. I'm really excited to invite these two guests because they're both fabulous and have some interesting things to say about retirement. Our first guest is Mark Heaton. Mark. Hello, Mark. Hi, hello. It's good to see you. You too. Could you tell us your name and where you're from? Oh, hello. I'm Mark Heaton, and I'm from Leyland. It's not far from Preston, in Lancashire. Well, it looks like it's pretty sunny there. You're looking well. I'm looking forward to talking to you about your journey and any advice you can give us. But first of all, I'd like to introduce our other guest, who is Lilian Lawson. Hello, Lilian. How are you? It's lovely to see you. Thank you for joining us tonight. Would you like to introduce yourself and say where you're from and give us your name?
Hello there, I'm Lilian Lawson. I live in Glasgow, Scotland.
Terrific. So, I'd like to ask you both. Um, you're both retired. I suppose the first question is, how long have you been retired? Mark, would you like to kick us off? I retired 14 years ago, but honestly, time has passed in a blink of an eye. Yeah. And Lillian, how about you? How long have you been retired?
Well, coming in this December, it will be 12 years. And like Mark, the time has just flown in. It really has. It's hard for me to believe it's been 12 years because it feels like yesterday. It's just flown past, but in a really good way.
It feels like 12 days and 14 days ago, or something like 12 minutes and 14 minutes ago. Time does fly, doesn't it? Really grateful for you both coming here today to talk to us about your experience. And I said earlier that there may be people in the audience who are thinking about retiring or who have even just retired, who might be looking forward to any tips and advice you can give. And the first question I have for you is, okay, when you were considering retirement and when you made that decision, how was that for you? Well, I'd worked for 40 years in three different jobs, a real hard worker I was. And I went to see a speech, and they were asking if anybody would like to take voluntary redundancy. And there was just something inside me that felt like the time was right to go, really. I'd done my time, I'd put in all the hours. I was thinking about it. And it was for me early retirement. So it was a question of whether the money was right. So I had a chat with them about what the package would be, what the remuneration would be. And that they gave me a rough idea of how much. And then I went along to an independent financial advisor, really good with money, talked to them about my situation. I'd been contributing from my various jobs to a pension pot for the last 40 years, and I had savings. And there was this potential of a package from voluntary redundancy. And when you put all that together, the financial advisor said, well, you'd be able to manage quite comfortably because I was too young still for the state pension. But the advisor said, no, you'll be okay. And that gave me the confidence actually to go back to work and say, yeah, I'd like to do it. But first you have to kind of notify them to say that you'd like to take voluntary redundancy, and then they discuss it and they can tell you that you've been accepted or you've been rejected for that. But I was accepted, and then I just told the team, you know, I'm going to be leaving, and they were all really shocked actually. So how long was that process? Did it take a month or 2 months or? I'd say about 3 or 4 months. Yeah. So I kept it quiet for about 3 months, but I was quite excited on the inside, hoping I was going to get it, and I did. So that was great. And I've never looked back. No regrets. Lilian, what about you? What was your experience?
My story is very different to Mark's. Similarly to Mark, I'd always worked. I'd always been in employment. I'd always had a job. But when I got to the age of 60, I decided to keep working because I still felt I was ready to work and it was fine. And there were other reasons why I wanted to stay in the workplace. But when I got to the age of 64, I started to think, you know, I'm not so sure I've got the motivation any longer. And so I went to them and told them that I was thinking I would go over the next year, and they were able to set up a plan for me to get replaced and all of that to happen. They also let me go down to 4 days a week at that stage, which gave me one day in a week. But obviously my salary was reduced because of that. I was getting paid for 4 days. But that one day a week let me pick up on things like going out with friends, going to see my sister, doing other things within my life. And I realized how much I enjoyed that additional day in the week. It was lovely to have that. And that was my retirement process.
Way, actually. That's a top tip, isn't it? To have that little plan. Mark, you wanted to say something. Yeah, when I told my team I was leaving, it was actually 3 or 4 months before I did in fact leave. And that gave them time and me time actually to kind of get my stuff in order. Um, so it was nice to say, you know, I'm going to go, and I want to go quietly. I don't want any fuss or anything, you know, I just want to go, and I just want to go quietly. Um, yeah. And I think, well, you know, when the time got close, my wife said, um, we'll go out for a meal with a couple of friends, you know, four of us going out for a meal. And I said, oh, yeah, that sounds good. I haven't seen them for ages, that particular couple. So we're going to go to a hotel. And we got to this hotel, and I couldn't see the friends in reception. And my wife said, oh, I think they might be through here in this room here. And I know that hotel. And I was like, no, that's not, the restaurant's the other way. And she said, no, it's here. So I was like, okay. And I walked through the door, and of course, huge surprise party, loads of people staring at me. And I was like, no. It was a real shock. It was a real surprise. And it was quite overwhelming, actually. Um, I, and my two grandsons came up to me, and it was, I mean, I gave them a hug, but there was so many people there. All my family was there, my brother's sister, my mum, loads of old friends, really overwhelming. And later, well, I felt a bit embarrassed. I felt a bit embarrassed. I was like, I really didn't need that attention. But it was really lovely. I had a great evening, I have to say, and everybody enjoyed it. And that made me feel very happy. Oh, that's great. And Lillian, what happened to you after the year?
Yeah, so as I told you, I gave them 1 year's notice in advance. Then we had the AGM in October, which we did every year. And so I had the turnout for the AGM, then there was a lunch break. Then after that, I was the first presenter on stage. But they then came to me and changed the plan and told me that the program had been changed. Then all these other people came up, and my friends from England came on board, and all these people were brought in who I hadn't expected to be there. And I was completely lost for words, looking at all these faces turning up who
That's
met
the first.
me. And that was where they had speeches. They gave me this wonderful cake. Lots of photographs were taken. It was a surprise as well. So that was October, and then I finished in December. And then there was an open day where people came in, and just an event for anybody to turn up and have a chat. That second event was planned, and I expected it. The AGM in October, people came in from all over the place, from England, everywhere else. I was completely lost for words, but it was a lovely event as well at the same time.
Oh, that sounds like you've both had a lovely send-off. And I mean, and as you say, you've worked over 40 years, Mark, and Lilian, you worked tirelessly. So really nice to get that kind of send-off at the end of a career, and you both deserve it. And I know that you've got some photos. So Mark, let's have a look at a photo of your farewell party. Oh, that looks lovely. It was really well attended. Tell us more about that cake, Mark.
Fabulous cake, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, I saw that cake, and what can I say? I mean, it was just beautiful, and I was really emotional actually, and I saw that, and you know the goodbye tension. It's the other way around, isn't it? I got it wrong there for a moment. A goodbye tension, hello pension, and it was true. I mean, I didn't want to say that to anyone, but I had been quite tense, at work, and obviously I just carried on with it as you do. But seeing it there in those letters on the cake, yeah, goodbye tension, hello pension. I was like, well, I'm not that old yet. I'm not ready to take my pension, but I suppose I was. Yeah, quite an impactful little message on the cake there. And did you eat it? Did you take a slice? I can't remember actually. I think I must have done, but I can't remember. There's so much going on. So it seemed really well attended, and it looked like everyone there was having a great time. That's fantastic. Yeah, and they were pretty naughty organizing that, especially when I'd said, I want to go quietly, but what can you do? I didn't say anything. I think, yeah, I was a bit overwhelmed, especially seeing all my family there, my mom and everything, it was a real surprise. And my wife had kept the secret incredibly well. I don't know how she did that, but props to her. Well, thanks for sharing your photos. I mean, that it looks like a great time. Lilian, you've talked about that this is your life, and you've got some photos that you want to show us here. So let's have a look at yours. That's a lot of photos. So let's go through them. Um, I want to talk about the This Is Your Life. Can you tell us about that book? What's happening there?
This was the book that I was presented with at the surprise AGM do for me that I really didn't know was coming up. Perhaps I should explain that I had decided to fly. I had gone off to Australia for nearly 7 weeks. On the day that that happened, a friend from England came into my office with my PA, Ashton, and they went through all my photos. They went round and interviewed everybody. They went to my sister. None of them let on. They pulled all this together. Obviously, I was away in Australia having a wonderful time, not knowing what they were up to. But they put all that together in book format in terms of where I was born and asking people to give their stories of their experiences throughout life with me, what it was like for me at home, my holidays. Some people wrote some lovely comments about the work that I had done, my contribution to their lives, the impact. And it was a lovely book to be handed because that's something very tangible that I can hold on to. And just like you would get that red book in the BBC programme, This Is Your Life, my gospel used to be the.
Yes, I remember Michael Aspel presenting that. It was a subtitle of program, wasn't it? It was always fantastic with the big red book. That looks great. And then in the next photo, Lilian, what did we see there?
There's, yeah,
There's a dog, isn't there? So is the dog an important part of your retirement experience, or?
absolutely. Jura has been a wonderful help for me. Jura's a real companion, really loyal. And one of the best things for me in retirement has been that I think it's so easy when you go into retirement to just move into a rut, lie in bed, get up late, wander around the kitchen in your pajamas, watch a bit of daytime TV. Having a dog looking at you, wanting to be taken out for a walk means I've always had to get up, get dressed, and be out of the house by 8:30 or 9, whatever the weather may be, as it can be. Cold, wet, windy, sunny, whatever, I've had to go out the door because of the dog. And when you get out the door, the air is fresh, there's other people around, there's people to chat to, they give you the story about the neighbors nearby, all of that. That's what a dog has done for me. It's brought me out into company and just picking up on the neighbors, telling me things, little tips about what's going on in the local area. And also, you engage with nature much more because you're outside. You notice the seasons, the leaves coming, the leaves going. All of that is thanks to my dog. And also within in the house itself, the dog's company. If I'm just sitting watching TV, the dog's with me. And you know what? She'll be 14 in September. 14 years old.
Oh, sweet. And there was another photograph there that we saw, wasn't there? Tell us about the next one. There was a group of you there.
Death history.
Is that okay? That's something you're involved in.
Yes, I was a volunteer for them, the secretary and the treasurer. Deaf History in Scotland started in 2008. Well before I retired, I was already part of that group. And then when I retired, I continued because that is my passion, ensuring that we are gathering and collating the history of deaf people in Scotland. And I wanted to ensure that the records that are around are put into formats that everybody can access and everybody can see, organizing exhibitions, workshops. It's just my passion. And so
Did that help you in retirement?
absolutely. Over the past few years, I've been organising tours. Just on Saturday there, I had a group of 17 American people over, and I was their tour guide around Glasgow, telling them about deaf history in Scotland. So that's just kept me going. Yeah.
And presentations, I know a big part of your interest in retirement is to keep going with that. Mark, when you retired, were there any hobbies that you picked up on, or what did you do? Well, remember I took voluntary redundancy. So I already had a few plans, and I thought when I finish work, I'm going to do all of these things. I'm not going to be sitting around twiddling my thumbs. I know what I'm going to do. And I have a family, and my mother and my sister, and it was a close family, and we all live quite locally. Now, my mother has a very big garden, so I thought I'll go along and I'll help my mom with the gardening a bit, just here and there at the weekends, help her manage that. And then when I retired, obviously I could go more and more regularly. The garden got neater, took up more time. Yeah, it did. And then the next door neighbour saw what I was doing with the garden and said, "Oh, please could Mark come round and do mine?" They had a paid gardener, but they saw what I was doing and liked it better and wanted to get rid of the gardener. They also had a big garden. I love gardening, luckily, always have done. And I have a little garden at home. So I was like, oh, okay, I've got more time. I'll do that. And then my auntie said, "Oh, Mark, could you do my garden?" And I was more busy after retirement with all of these gardens. And then 5 years later, my mum passed away, but I carried on with the neighbour's garden. Then she herself passed away at the ripe old age of 100. And her son lived in Australia, only one son. So we'd go around every day to make sure she was okay. And then eventually she passed away. Um, but I still do gardening at my daughter's house and at my own house. And I moved here to the bungalow about 4 years ago, and the garden was in a terrible state. It was all higgledy-piggledy, and I thought, right, this is great. It's a project. I'm going to start with this. And it's immaculate now. It looks fabulous. I've nearly finished. So your gardening became a kind of part-time job, really, didn't it? Amazing. Lilian, are you a gardener? Is that something you're keen on? No, not looking like it is.
Oh yeah, I do have a garden, but it doesn't sound as big as Mark says. It's quite small and it's perfectly sized for me. I do the grass, I do the weeding. Sometimes when I'm doing the weeding, I find it a really mindful process because I find that my mind becomes very creative when I'm doing the weeding for some reason. Things that were a problem will come to me, or I'll have an idea around death history and something to do there. So I find it really relaxing mentally as well doing the gardening.
So you're looking after the garden and the grandchildren, Mark? Yeah. Yeah, when I retired, I already had two grandchildren, but after retirement, I got two more. Um, so yeah, I would go to my daughter's house, which is just about a 10 minutes walk from mine. Um, really too close, I suppose, really. But I go there every day, every morning. Look after the baby, which of course is a delight to help with that. Um, and my daughter was at home looking after the baby as well. But when she went back to work, um, you know, with friends and relatives, we all took turns with raising the baby. So every morning I take my grandson to school. He's 10 now. So I've been going backwards and forwards to school for 5 years. Every morning taking grandson to school, and in the afternoon picking him up and bringing him back again to my daughter's house. And 2 or 3 years ago, my daughter bought a little puppy.
Sweet.
So my daughter's working, all the family are working, and people at school and college and whatever. So in the morning, I walk the dog on the way to my grandson's school, drop him off, walk the dog back home. Lunchtime, I go back, check the dog's okay, especially when he's a puppy. And then at pickup time, I take the dog to school and then back again. So that's the structure of my day, Monday to Friday, every day for 5 years. And dog's 3 now, so I don't need to go at lunchtime. I can just go in the morning and the afternoon, and he can look after himself through the day. But kept me busy. Wow, definitely. You have been busy, haven't you? So I want to just go back a little bit to when you retired. Did you have any concerns just before retirement about maybe pension or about anything like that? Is there any advice that any tips that you can give people watching today who might be thinking about retiring? Were you anxious about it before you made your decision? Is there
Yes,
something that you would like to say about that?
indeed. As Mark said, I have been putting away for my pension all my working life. So then I went and met with an independent financial advisor a few years actually before my anticipated retirement date.
Oh, a few years earlier. That's good.
And I talked to them about all my assets, what I had, my income, my pension, and they were able to reassure me that it looked as if I was in a really good position. And then when it got to the point of actually going to retire, I was able to, work that through with them. And they really reassured me that it was a good decision for me to make. And I have been very comfortable. Yeah, I've managed well and keep an eye on that.
And are you still going?
Yeah, we have reviews every 6 months. And that's really helpful. I would advise people to find an independent financial advisor at an early stage. When you're even thinking about retirement, plan in advance, get yourself organized in advance, do it that way.
Thank you. Mark, did you have this similar experience or? Yeah, I was already in touch with a financial advisor and had been so intermittently throughout my career. And then when this opportunity for voluntary redundancy came up, as I said, I discussed it with my work. But I was unable to go to the independent advisor because it was somebody I'd met before. And he was able to kind of crunch the numbers and make sure that I was going to be comfortable and I wasn't going to be struggling because I didn't want to worry. I didn't want to have any anxiety about that. Of course, I've been comfortable with my wage, and as soon as your wage disappears, that's quite a big step. But he said, the independent financial advisor said, no, and we had a consultation. They crunched the numbers, did all the paperwork, and said, no, you'll be fine. And I felt confident with that, and that meant I could go ahead and retire. So, Lilian, you say you're still checking on that and review every 6 months. Is that something you do as well, Mark? Yes, I still do intermittently. Yeah, yeah. And that's interesting. Well, thanks for that, folks. Those are good tips. And I think we may have some questions from the audience. Let's see if we've got a question here. This one is from Magella. Magella says, I have two questions. First, is it possible to work beyond the retirement age while receiving a government pension at the same time? Is that possible? And secondly, before retirement, well, actually, let's leave that. We'll come back to that later. Let's have a look at the retirement age. Can you receive the government pension at the same time? Do you know an answer to that, Lilian?
Yes, indeed. So when I got to the age of 60, I was entitled to get a pension while still working, but there is an option around declining that. Because if you decline that, then it just gets delayed until the actual retirement age. So there are options around that. You can carry on working and you can take the pension if you're entitled to it, dependent on your official retirement age, but you can continue to work whilst receiving that pension. Yes, that's the answer.
So you can draw it or you can hold it while you're working.
Yes, you can have that as well as your wage, but it may be that there's a tax implication of all that.
Okay, so let's look at the second part of Magella's question now. She says, secondly, before retirement, do people ever worry about facing loneliness? So what's your experience? Thank you, Magella, for that question. What's your experience about that fear of loneliness in Magella's question? I think it's important when you're anticipating retirement to get in touch with your friends. And the deaf community is really important for making sure that you're not isolated. WhatsApp is incredibly useful for keeping in touch with people, and you can FaceTime, and it's really important to be mentally positive, and you'll know that you won't be alone when you retire. Lilian?
I really agree with what you said. I mean, thank God for the technology we've got nowadays. It's so different. We have FaceTime, we have video chat, and it means we can chat to our friends anytime, anywhere. And people as well who are who are a bit depressed, we can put in a video call and then cheer them up. WhatsApp groups, I think, are really beneficial too. For example, there's one WhatsApp group I'm in, and sometimes you notice that somebody hasn't responded, and then we can check in very easily. And often it's because they've been busy or away on holiday or something. But I think WhatsApp groups are really helpful. I very much want to say you have to be proactive on this. You have to make that effort. Get out and about, make friends, go for coffee, have a chat. Make sure that you've got options, but do be proactive on it.
Yeah, and locally we have a deaf social evening every fortnight. But I always think about people who live quite some distance from that. So we sometimes arrange kind of walking or special events to try and get them along, to make sure they come along and meet their deaf friends.
And
Outreach.
One of my real passionate hobbies is photography. And there was a new group just set up called the Glasgow Deaf Photography Walkers. And when I joined that group, I encountered a really different bunch of people from my usual friendship groups. And it was an opportunity for me to pursue my hobby and make new friends. Now that, used to be every second month. It's now every month. And I go when I can. We share photographs. We go out together at different places all the time. I get to see areas of Glasgow that maybe I wouldn't have seen before, and I've met a whole bunch of new people.
So make sure you solidify your existing groups, but join new groups as well. Good tip. So let's go back to Lilian. I know you and I have talked about this before, that WhatsApp is a really useful way of checking on people and making sure, if someone is ill, that you can visit them. Do you have any experiences of that kind of thing? What are you using tech for that?
Okay, so I'm in two particular WhatsApp groups. One would have 17 members, and it started because we are people who all enjoy walking and we all go on holidays together. During lockdown, when we were all stuck at home, that WhatsApp group became so important because on a daily basis, we were in touch with each other, sharing our news, having a bit of a laugh. And we used that group to set up Zoom calls where we could chat together. Then I'm in another smaller group where we follow the Wordle game on a daily basis.
Tell us about Wordle, Lilian.
So Wordle is you start with any 5 letters and then you have to make up words with those. And there's a whole process that you go through. Yellow means it's the right letter in the wrong place, and green is, there's different color combinations that let you know you're on track with this one word that everybody's got to get. And you've only got 6 lines to get it right. Sometimes you'll get it the first go, but that's only rare. You want to get it too. We do that every morning. And you have 6 or 7 in the morning. We're on our WhatsApp group trying to work out the word. And
Oh,
then
that's so nice.
one person that I realized wasn't there, and then I sort of said, "Where are you?" And that actually slept in. So it's a great way of just checking in with each other. Or one other person who was on their way on the train and they couldn't respond. But just those natural ways you're chatting, noticing somebody isn't around is a really nice way of just keeping an eye on each other.
A good idea. So actually, retirement isn't about being alone, it's about connecting to others. Mark. Yeah, I mean, those games I don't play because I haven't got much time. But WhatsApp is really helpful. I'm in touch with my old school group, in fact, my old class. I think there are 9 of us from my old class at school. We all have a WhatsApp group together. We share photos, we talk about the holidays we've been on, we share all kinds of news, jokes, those little GIFs or GIFs, and we're always putting those on. We wish each other happy birthday. Being the first to congratulate people on their birthdays and things. So just keeping in touch that way. Yeah, so really useful to keep in touch, to join groups, to text each other, keep an eye on each other. That's lovely. These are great suggestions, and I hope that answers Magella's question about loneliness. So we've got loads of questions coming in, folks. Let's see if we can take another one. This is another question from Magella. Let's see what Magella is asking now. So Magella says you've both worked in the deaf sector for many years. Now you see fewer deaf schools, yet many young people remain actively engaged in the deaf community. What advice would you give them, particularly regarding deaf leadership for the next generation? Because you yourselves have kind of have a historical perspective on that. What's your view for the future? Do we have an answer for Magella? I think young deaf people today have a very different experience from our generation. Lilian and I both went to boarding schools where we were kind of in a very tight cohort. A lot of people now are mainstream, so it's very, very different as an experience. Last week, I bumped into someone who was working at a local college to me, and they had 30 deaf students at the college there. Not too far from me. And I just bumped into someone who worked there, and they were saying that a lot of the deaf students who come from different areas to that college are finding so much kind of companionship. There's a lot of them who are oral, they don't sign very much. So the staff are signing, and this is, for some of them, the first time they've been exposed to it. But it's lovely to see a large number of deaf young people sharing thoughts together. But my mind goes to those who don't have that experience, who are isolated, and hopefully they'll find the community. But it is a very different space to the one that we enjoyed in our time. Lilian, your thoughts?
Absolutely. I think that issue around having been in a boarding school and the numbers being so high in those schools, and also in our time, there were no mobile phones, no subtitles on the TV. So when we were together, we chatted all the time. It was all about just in sign language. We discussed everything, we talked, and then people took on leadership roles. And I always remember in the clubs when we got to the AGM, there was a massive vote carried out, and the secret ballot, and everybody was desperate to be on the committee. They wanted to be part of that. Nowadays, when you try and get people to take on responsibility, they're very reluctant. And I think things have changed significantly with this generation. But I think that it's a shame because in our time, the Deaf Club was where we learned to look up to our role models, and we learned from the role models, and we had them, and that was passed on. I think nowadays what we're seeing is also youth services developing. And I hope that these youth services will start to replace what we've had in the deaf clubs, because we need somewhere for people to come together. As long as they're led by deaf youth leaders, I think the potential is there to be the new place for that to develop.
Yeah, and you know, the person was telling me at the college, you know, the deaf students when they get together, I mean, it sounded so great, and I just really wanted to go along and say hello to everyone there. But you know, there is that sense that I have that I want to kind of go and motivate the young people. I'm very busy though, but okay. So we have Stuart Parkinson with another question. He said, do you both put importance on keeping fit to remain healthy and to be mentally alert? So do you have any kind of important hobbies in that regard, folks? Lilian.
I totally agree. I think physical fitness is really important. And so walking my dog every day takes me out of the house, and that keeps me fit. I also think being sensible around the way that we eat, looking after ourselves in terms of what we put in our body is important. It's so easy when we're not working to change our habits, but also keeping some sense of routine in the day, which means that we have breakfast and lunch and regular meals. And maybe eating less because we're not doing that. But I think taking up new sports is really important. Last year, I started playing pickleball.
And what's pickleball? Can you give us a clue?
So this is what we play with.
Okay, so this is the bat, right?
And there you go.
Can you just lift that a little, Lilian? Can you just, oh, does it say at the bottom, what's the last line there? Improves memory. Playing pickleball improves memory. Great.
And
are you in a deaf team or a hearing team? Or?
It's not just deaf people. I have some friends from the south of England who'd started playing pickleball, and they were telling me wonderful stories about how wonderful it was. It comes from 3 different sports: table tennis, badminton, and tennis, all put together in one new sport.
So all 3 of them, amazing.
The rules are quite similar to the rules of badminton. The size of the court would be similar to the size of the badminton court, but the actual racket that we use is very different. You can see this one here. It's very different. It's more like a table tennis racket, but it's that. Now, this is really excellent for my overall fitness. I had some friends who were playing this, and I wanted something local. So last year, I went through my local community paper, and it was trying to get people to go in and do this. But, you know, I didn't know any other deaf people who were going, so I contacted them and asked, and they were very welcoming to me and asked me to come in. And the last time I had played badminton had been 40 years ago. Yeah, I keep myself fit with walking, but not a ball sport at that type. So I joined, and you know, we used our mobile phones to text words out to communicate. We used gesture. I just watched it. I loved it. They're a fabulous group of people. I played twice a week, Mondays and Fridays, every week, and I absolutely love pickleball. I'm loving it. It's now become really popular. It's taken off massively. And I'm really lucky I got in when I did, because this year the club I'm in is full. They're not taking new members at all. I really enjoy it. It's a nice way to get out, play about, get fit, and meet people.
What about you, Mark? Well, I like walking as well. I walk every day. You know, I'm taking the dog out. But also, I do a lot of chopping logs, you know, with wood. My daughter has a wood burning stove, and I'm the lumberjack. I'm chopping the logs. I like swimming as well. When my 2 grandsons were little, I would take them both swimming. So I like to swim, and that's very good for you. And I love tennis, but I haven't really had time. Maybe that's something I'll pick up later. I'd like to get back into tennis. Haven't had time with that yet. Okay, thank you for the tips and for answering the question. We have another question now from Sandra David, who wants to ask, have you thought about volunteering locally? Are you either of you doing any volunteering? Yes, I am volunteering actually. Here in my area, we have a voluntary deaf group that liaises with the county council, because there's been very little access for deaf people using sign language around our area. There are services for hearing impaired people, but for BSL users, there's very little. Ability to engage with council staff. So our volunteer group liaises with the county council, to try and improve access. And there's a deaf BSL support link worker. Well, they're hearing, but they go out and about, and there's just one for the whole of Lancashire. So you can imagine the workload. So we support that person, we give them advice, and I work voluntarily with that link worker. So I do to keep myself busy. And how about you, Lilian?
I've already mentioned about the deaf history in Scotland, which is not just for Glasgow, it's for the whole of Scotland. Also, I will be part of the East Dunbartonshire BSL Access Group, which was set up 2 years ago by a deaf guy, and a lot of local people have come in. We meet up every few months to talk through some local issues in relationship to council services and accessing council services. It's good to be there, and actually I've come across people I didn't know who live in the same council area. So it's not like I have onerous responsibilities, but it's a great opportunity as a volunteer to go out and raise some issues and bring my experience to the table as well.
And just keeps you going, doesn't it? Great. And we've got another question here from Alex Jury, who says, hello, how do you choose a financial advisor? And how do you communicate with them? Do you use an interpreter, or what's your experience of that? Well, in my second job, it was a little bit kind of like a freelancer. So my second job wasn't really, my first job was with an employer, and they paid a wage and a pension. And my second was very different. It was a kind of new startup. So they had a financial advisor to help them set up. So I just, piggybacked on that financial advisor, and that was how I found them. Lilian, how did you find yours?
Very interesting question, because on reflection, in my role, we would have had people coming in to give us financial advice on pensions and all of that. Not really independent, but as part of their job role. That was previous role. And in my last job role, there was an opportunity because there was a financial advisor who was brought into the deaf club, and they brought an interpreter in, and it was a seminar for deaf people. Now, this person is a child of deaf adults, so they'd grown up in a deaf family. They made the presentation, and at the end of it, I was fascinated, and I then asked if I could have a chat with them outside. That was the start of that connection, and that's been going for 12, 13 years ago now. He's a lovely guy, really, really nice guy.
Okay, so just a question of keeping your eyes peeled. So Alex, I hope that answers your question. Keep your eyes peeled. It's about word of mouth, knowing someone who knows someone, or going along to a presentation.
Specific question around how you communicate with them. I mean, I know the first cuts we had to do through interpreters, but this last one, because they came in, then I was able to communicate directly with them because they were from a deaf family and they'd grown up that way, and so communication wasn't an issue. So it has been different with different situations.
Terrific. Well, I think we've got to the end of questions. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. I'd like to ask you both. I know you both have lots of hobbies. You volunteer. You do all sorts of things. And I think you like to travel and go on holidays. Am I right?
Very much so.
particularly you, Lilian. I know that you've got some photos for us to enjoy. Let's have a look at those. Wow, I'm sure it's the same for you, Mark. Some lovely memories from holidays there. So, are you taking more holidays now that you've retired, or fewer holidays?
Absolutely. I've had more holidays since I retired. I have indeed. I've also gone quite far afield at times. I also sometimes take city breaks. They don't have to be long holidays. And because I'm retired, I can go during the week when it's typically quieter in the cities. Um, and so it's been really nice to have the freedom to do that. I've enjoyed it.
Can you tell us about the photos we just saw? Where were you there?
That car was in Cuba. Making momos for lunch was
In Nepal. Wow.
yeah, in Nepal. The one with the children. Then the last one was the beach was in Wales, and then the place with the valley was not Grand Canyon. That was Namibia, Fish River Canyon, a really stunning place. Petra was one of them as well.
Oh, yes, I know Petra.
Very familiar.
Um, wow. So many. So, in your free time, you're just kind of planning these trips, are you? Or how about you, Mike? Got anything planned? Well, I've been to Petra with about 30 people in the group, 30 deaf people in the group. We had a great time. And then that was about 2 months after I left my job. Um, so it was great traveling around Turkey with that big group of 30 people. And last week I just got back from Japan. Um, but I don't really plan much. We have a couple of a deaf couple who are friends, and they wanted to go to Japan. So they said, oh, we were planning to go to Japan, and they're both in their 80s, and they have two grown-up sons who had been to Japan, and their tales had made their parents want to go to Japan. So they'd looked online, and they said to me and my wife, well, why don't the four of us go? And I was like, oh, I don't know. There's a lot of travel because you're both in your 80s. Anyway, there are a few tours, and eventually we found 4 days in Tokyo and then a cruise which you could get on and off. And that seemed more suitable as an itinerary for us and for them in their 80s. So yeah, the four of us went, and I just got home last Thursday and it was fantastic. Really enjoyed it. Lovely for the four of us there because we could all chat in sign language. And cruises, big cruise ships, I'm not a fan of, but this was a small sort of, a smaller size cruise ship. And then recently, my daughter had her 40th. My daughter-in-law wanted to plan some kind of holiday together for us for half term going abroad. So my daughter-in-law had done the research and I think booked it in February last year. Um, so we all flew off to Madeira because it's cheaper. So my daughter-in-law found great flights, great hotel deals. So a week in Madeira for October half term, and that was fantastic. Where else have we been? In May last year, we went on a river cruise. So we flew to Cologne in Germany, and yeah, that's right. And we went on a river cruise, and that was lovely, on and off at different stops along the river. So Germany, Austria, Slovakia, um, Hungary, um, and then we flew home, and that was fabulous, great, fantastic, really good. But
Mhm.
And we don't only go abroad. There are lovely holidays to be taken here in the British Isles as well. 2 years ago, we went to Dumfries in Scotland. So we wanted to visit a friend of ours who lives in Dumfries, stayed there for a week. We had a lovely time in Scotland. And then my old school class, we had gatherings in Newcastle. We had 4 nights in Newcastle. We had a great time. Another one in Manchester. So we try to do different city breaks when we have our reunions. So I like to go abroad and stay at home. How about you, Lilian?
Last week from being in Fife, where we had a bunch of 17 of us. Most of us had been to school together. Some people had their husbands or partners or whoever with them. We rented a big house out. We cooked for ourselves. And we are called the Happy Deaf Walkers. That's the name of our group. We've been going as a group for over 10 years now. Most of us walk the same. We all used to walk the same distance. Now some people do the full distance. Some people only do so far. But we go as a group. I have one of the group members is fabulous at organizing the itineraries and creating options for those who perhaps aren't as able to walk so far, so that they've somewhere to go and visit. Sometimes we go out for meals or we cook in for ourselves. And we've already booked our holiday next year, which will be in Kent. And I want to get them back to talking about holidays abroad, because what I do is when I go abroad, I write a journal recording everything that's been done. I take lots of photographs during the winter months. I put all of those into photo books, and I've got one here I can show you of our trip to New Zealand.
Wow, that's great. That's a really nice kind of memento, and lovely to go out and about. And then in the winter when it's dark and cold, you can look back on that and you can sit and share a book with friends, can't you? Yeah, I'm going to come to your house, Lilian. Can you put all my photographs in books for me, please?
I've got a garden here. You're welcome to come and help me out in the garden. We'll do something.
It's a deal. Fabulous. I can imagine you two getting it all timetabled out. But retirement looks pretty great. And I'm sure the people sitting at home will be looking at this and maybe going into work tomorrow and saying, hey, can I take early retirement? When can I retire? Because you're such fantastic role models, you two. Well, I would just say to any deaf people watching who have retirement coming up, look on the internet, and there are lots of resources out there. There's Deaf Walkers, there's Deaf Mountaineering Club. There's so many different clubs. Deaf Caravanning Club, Camping Club, so many different events and things as well. Get motivated, have a look. Maybe you'll find something that you're really keen to join.
And as well as that, I'm not a member myself. There's a Deaf 50 plus group that seem to have really big crowds. Over 100 people go to that. So I think that's the thing. If you can find those groups and join them.
Yeah, and make sure you book in quickly, because often these things are taken very quickly. So have a look on the internet, talk locally and shore up your local friendships. And I think, have we got another question here? Yes, Stuart has got another question. Stuart asks, how can we improve accessible information linked to retirement for the deaf community? I mean, today's been a good start. You've had a really good blether about retirement, but what about information out there in the wider world about retirement for deaf people?
And I think that is the difficulty, that for deaf people, there is so much less information available unless they get together. Perhaps that's something that BDA could take on board, Avril. I think that's something that could be looked at. And perhaps an annual workshop for those who are coming up to a retirement age. Bring in deaf people like now that we've got tonight who have gone through that. And
workshops would be nice, like regional workshops. Great idea, Lilian. And I think, if there are local BSL social clubs, we tend to share resources, but maybe we can do that nationally as well. Yeah, I think a lot of deaf people are unsure about what to do. So hopefully this video will be a start. People can have a look at it, get some ideas from this. And thank you, Stuart. That's a great point that you raised there. And we've got Alex again, who says, lovely photos. Now we're all living longer. What plans do you have for the future, you guys?
It's a fair question. Yeah. I just want to keep traveling. Yeah. And
Anything planned this year, next year, Lilian? I want to carry on volunteering with the deaf community. For me, I want to make sure everyone's okay, everyone's got access. If there's anything I can do to help sort that out, I'm really keen on that. I'm well connected locally, so yeah.
and I'll certainly carry on with Deaf History Scotland as long as I feel that I've got the ability to, and as long as they want me to be involved. And I'm really still passionate about raising funds for that as well. In 4 weeks' time, we're going to have a sponsored walk, and that'll be over 6 days in Fife.
Wow.
Sorry, 6 days, about 70 miles in total to fundraise for Deaf History Scotland. So that passion is there, and that's where I really want to put myself into.
Fabulous. Well, wow, both of you. I hope the walk goes very well, Lilian. You raise lots of money. I'm sure you will. And just keeping walking is important. And I hope the weather stays good for you.
Crossed on
Just
that one.
warm, not too hot, not too hot, just warm. Thanks both of you. I hope that answers your question, Stuart. Really, you've both, just looking at you both, you're both a kind of real role models for a kind of positive, healthy, happy retirement. And I'd like to ask you both, what's your recipe? What are you doing to keep you fit and well? What's your tip? I know, Mark, you have your own little tricks. What's making you look so good, the pair of you? Come on, give us some tips. Well, I'm not sure this is the right way to go about it, but I allow myself 1 glass of wine every day with a meal, just 1 glass. No, I don't top it up at all, just 1 glass, put the bottle away, drink the glass. And then, this is a square of dark chocolate. I have one of those every day after a meal,
Holy one.
just one square. And whether that helps me, I don't know, but it feels good. And then every morning after I've had my cereal, I have a slurp of cod liver oil. Love it. And maybe that's helping me be healthy. I don't know, but that's what I'm doing. Lilian, what are your tips? Have you got anything like that?
Those are great tips. I don't know if anything as specific as that, but I think keep it very simple. Overall, keep a really positive outlook on the future. It's very easy to get dragged down into negativity. Keep a positive outlook in life and have a good laugh. Make sure you have a laugh a day. Laughter's the best medicine.
Couldn't agree more. Those are great tips. Thank you both. And I hope you've given our audience plenty of food for thought. I'm sure you have. You also mentioned earlier, Lilian, about eating well and looking after yourself. So that's important,
Right.
isn't it, too? Oh, yeah, I love cooking. I love to cook. So, yeah. I don't cook excessive amounts. I cook healthy food. I cook a lot of vegetables. I do love vegetables. I love a salad. And just flinging things together to make a kind of really interesting salad. So I like good, healthy food. As Lilian said before, it's also important to eat regularly. You have breakfast, you have lunch, and you have dinner. I rarely eat in between. So yeah, keep your diet regular.
And as well as that, I think it's important to start off the day with a really good breakfast. I typically have porridge
Ah, bowl of porridge.
every morning, 5 times a week. The other 2 days, I'll have some kind of cereal as a break from the routine. But I think it's really good to start off the day with something that lines the stomach, not too much, but a good bowl of porridge starts me off well for the day.
Oh, you're both experts in retirement here, aren't you? It's so valuable what you're telling us. And it may be a stupid question to ask, but it looks like neither of you are really missing work, are you?
Nope.
When I left and I retired, they said, could you come back in from time to time and do bits and pieces? And I did. So I haven't left entirely, but I've never regretted it. I've just, move on, keep positive, keep going forward. Lilian, what about you?
When I made the decision and I put my notice in 1 year in advance, I did start to get a little bit anxious about whether or not that decision had been the right one. As time went on and I actually did retire, I just got so busy that I looked back and thought, what was that all about? Why did I do that? And I've just looked forward and moved into the future, and time just flies past every day.
Time flies, absolutely. And I think I have 8 days a week now, not 7. I think I have 8. Okay. Okay. So as retirees, you're busier than us workers, I think, and you've got a busier schedule. But the last question I want to ask you is coming from Olive Lysette, who says, if you had the choice to retire again, what would you do differently? Or would you? Is there anything you would change?
No,
No,
no.
no. So you just do exactly the same as you did? Yeah, just the same, just the same. And Joe has a good question. He says, fantastic tips shared with the deaf community. We're still looking for more volunteers across the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Your support can make a real difference. So you know where he is? So contact Joe if you're looking to volunteer. Joe's looking for volunteers.
I think I have enough on my plate just now.
Well, I think you've both been fantastic role models for the deaf community watching tonight. Fabulous tips, great outlooks, and we've just been talking for an hour, would you believe it? I think we've covered everything. Is there anything else that you would like to say before we close the session today?
This might sound like a silly tip. However, I think it's a really good idea to organize your day. I don't want to get too rigid about that, but I'm always well organized. And that's part of my habits I learned from being at work and management there. I have a to-do list for the next day. I have a plan for the next day so that I know what I'm going to be doing. And I actually tick off my list as the day goes on. And then for the next day, I'll set up a list again. And it means that I know I've achieved.
Yeah, planning is important, planning ahead. So I'm texting my cousin. My cousin's deaf. I texted my cousin, and they've got a coffee morning that with a local hearing community, and I'll just text and say, oh, can we meet up after coffee morning? In the local village. So planning ahead, different activities across your week. Yeah. Well, thanks so much tonight for your time and for your tips and for your experience. It's been great. Thank you again. I hope the audience have enjoyed watching, but really thank you both, and all the best for the rest of your retirement. Take care. Bye.